Hi everyone, my name is Amber and today we are going to learn about the power of performance feedback. Now, the first thing that you need to know about the power of performance feedback is we must begin our conversation by creating an environment for excellent performance. We must begin the conversation by creating an environment for excellent performance. See, I'm reminded whenever I used to be a football coach or a soccer coach for a boys team, for several boys teams with the Paris Saint-Germain and Adidas Game Day Academy in Bangalore, India. There I realized that whenever I joined the team, some of our teams were operating under a very strict command and obey dynamic. See, many times our team members would come to sessions and they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for direction. And they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for instruction. And they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for feedback. While this may be an efficient way to teach a skill, in a game scenario, it was actually a disaster, as oftentimes our players would kick the ball perfectly, exactly the way that we taught them, and then turn to the sideline to the coach for further direction and feedback. See, our players had mastered the task, but they did not understand how it applied to the overall game scenario. While this might be a simple story, and you may think it's a simple story with sports and kids, how often do team members go to work, receive a task, and wait for instruction? And so we found that we could transform our performance within our team by stopping and stop communicating and clarifying and commanding what the how was, and actually communicating the what and the why, right? So we stopped commanding the how and started clearly communicating why and what. The what and the why. In application, this was not a dramatic overhaul of our communication. In fact, it was a slight pivot. So rather than stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for instruction, we provided challenges. So from here, kick the ball to knock down those 3 cones. Because in order to do that, you're going to have to kick with power and precision. And in a game scenario, whenever you pass, whenever you kick, whenever you shoot, you're also going to have to kick with power and precision. Now, how are we going to kick the ball? From challenges like these, I saw some of the most heated debates I'd ever seen amongst 7-year-olds, trying to decide if the best way to kick the ball was with the infoot or with the laces. In reality, both ways were right. And so we were able to expand our toolbox of resources by clearly communicating our what and our why, and allowing opportunities for ownership within the how. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a moment and write down some of the expectations that you have of your team. This is actually an activity that I'll do with the entire team whenever we are starting a project, whenever we have new team members, whenever we take on a new client. We'll get together and we will take a moment in silence at first to write down some of the performance expectations that we have of our team, some of the performance expectations that we have within a project. What are the expectations that you have? Next, I want you to write down, why is that an expectation? Let me give you an example. Within my company, we are an international organization. We have people all over the world. And so whenever we have a meeting, there is a big likelihood that somebody is getting up early. Somebody is staying up late to come to a meeting if we have synchronous collaboration or a meeting. And so there is an expectation for people to come to meetings on time. Why? Not just because Amber wants meetings to start on time. We're doing this to show respect to our team members, especially those that are getting up late or staying up late, those that are getting up early. By showing up to meetings on time, we are showing respect to our team. And so, excellent performance feedback begins by creating an environment for excellent performance, by clearly communicating our what and our why, and allowing space for ownership within the how. Now, once we have clearly communicated our what and our why, there still is opportunity for expectations to go unmet. And so, in these moments, we must be prepared to give feedback. There may be times when expectations are somewhat met. There may be opportunities where expectations change. Maybe the expectations raise. So in these situations, we must be prepared to give feedback on the performance. Now, whenever we are working with our teams and giving this performance feedback, now this could be performance feedback on the performance of a rollout. It could be the performance of a project. It could be the performance of a team member, right? So this could be outcomes-based expectations. It could be also behavior-based expectations. And so whenever we have feedback that we need to give to our team, the first thing that we need to do is ask why. The first thing we need to do is to seek understanding. I was working with one team that had a team member that was dreaded whenever he spoke at meetings. People said, Amber, whenever this person speaks at meetings, they are abrupt. They are abrasive. Some even said malicious. And so I asked the question, what is your intention whenever you are speaking at meetings? And we found that he was intending to be passionate. He was intending to be persuasive. And so there was a gap between intended behavior and perceived behavior. And by asking for intentions first, we were able to enter into more of a coaching relationship to bring the two closer together. One of the greatest obstacles, one of the greatest barriers to excellent, effective performance feedback is a concept called the fundamental attribution error. Now, the fundamental attribution error is really a fancy way of saying that too often we judge other people by their outcomes. We judge people by the way that we perceive how they're speaking at meetings. We judge people the way that they are performing in their job. We judge other people by their outcomes, while we judge ourselves by our intentions. We see this happening whenever we're driving down the road. Somebody cuts us off and clearly they're a horrible driver. They're completely inconsiderate. We need to take their keys and get them off the road. But if we accidentally cut somebody off, then we didn't intend to cut someone off. We didn't see the lane change was coming. We did not intend to be that jerk on the road. And so whenever you're working with your team, I want you to be mindful of this fundamental attribution error and ask for intention first. Imagine if I yelled at my team members whenever I was coaching soccer every single time that they shot at the goal and they missed. If I yelled at them every single time, then eventually they're going to stop taking shots at goal. Instead, I see what they are intending to do. They are intending to score a goal for the team, but they missed. And so I enter into that coaching relationship to try to match that intended behavior and perceived behavior or outcome. So whenever you are giving your performance feedback, the first thing that you need to do is to be mindful of the fundamental attribution error and seek understanding first. Now, there are actually ways that we can be preventative and be proactive in our feedback faux pas, right? So one big obstacle is not seeking intent and only looking at the outcomes. Sometimes whenever we work with teams, there may be opportunity for conflict. There's going to be opportunity for challenge. If I'm clearly communicating that what and that why and not providing space in between, if I'm clearly communicating that what and that why and I'm providing space in between for the how, then that is an excellent opportunity for norms to be challenged. It's an excellent opportunity for teams to collaborate in an effective way. And so we found that, again, whenever we were working on a new project, whenever we had new team members, whenever we had a new client, we could engage in proactive conversations. Now, proactive conversations is really a fancy way of saying that too oftentimes we don't prepare for the conversations that we are going to have. So it's a quick conversation that says, hey, at some point in our working relationship, there's probably going to be conflict. At some point in our working relationship, there's probably going to be challenges, frustration, tension, heat. If you're in a remote team or a global team, a proactive conversation is necessary. Here, you are saying at some point in our working relationship, there's probably going to be tension. And so while the emotions are low now, let us proactively discuss how we're going to handle those tensions whenever they inevitably arise. In your performance, there is an opportunity for tension, an opportunity for norms to be challenged. Have these proactive conversations. Now, in these proactive conversations, I want you to get very specific so that you can get strategic. Okay? Here's what I mean. Rather than saying, hey, if there's a problem, bring it up. I want you to be more specific than that. Let me give you a couple examples. I was working with one team. We were facilitating a workshop, and we identified that these team members had a habit of circular conversation, right? So they would discuss and discuss and talk and talk and talk and not actually make a decision, not actually take action. Now, this team was getting ready to start a very big project. And so we were brought in to help facilitate some of these proactive conversations. And knowing this fact, we implemented ELMO, which meant that we were going to time box decisions. There was a time to bring up a challenge, a time to discuss possible solutions, final remarks, and then make a decision. ELMO, enough, let's move on. So here we implemented ELMO within this discussion, within this decision-making process, and the team was able to make decisions in a timely manner to move forward. So up on the board, we actually wrote ELMO and then wrote the famous quote, the best decision is the right decision. The second best decision is the wrong decision. The worst decision is no decision. This team needed to make decisions. It was a huge part of our proactive conversation. There was another team that was crippled with a combination of scope creep, of always wanting things to be perfect before deployment. And so the result of this mindset, the result of always adding something more, wanting to add and add and add before deployment, was resulting in missed deadlines and a lot of frustration within the organization. And so this team, we worked together and we implemented a similar acronym, GETMO, which meant that we clarified the standard that was good enough to move on. GETMO, good enough to move on. See, these proactive conversations are much more than, hey, if there's a problem, bring it up. They're actually very specific so that you can be strategic. Sometimes this might be an interpersonal conversation. For example, I am a big picture, visionary type of person. There are people in my team that are very detail oriented. There is a massive opportunity for us to have misunderstanding and conflict. We have specific conversations of how we will handle situations whenever someone gets frustrated with me for not being attentive to some details, and also conversations of whenever I get frustrated with not seeing the big picture. We actually have a game plan of how we're going to move forward. Now, after you have your proactive, once you have your proactive conversations, this really can put you in a position to have a game plan moving forward within your team. So I told you that the first thing that you needed to do within your feedback was to seek understanding. Understanding is our first point. The second is to engage in the purpose of your feedback. Now, there are actually three major purposes to feedback. And in all three purposes, I want you to be intentional in your what and why. So the first purpose of performance feedback is to encourage desired behavior. Now, too often times within teams, we see the intent of effective encouraging feedback, and it may sound a little something like this. Hey, good job. Well done. Keep up the good work. You're doing awesome. And this sounds nice, but the person does not know what action should be repeated. What do I need to do to get another good job? So here's what I want you to do. Whenever you are giving encouraging feedback, I want you to use the what-why model. So, to give encouraging feedback, I want you to clarify what is the action that you want repeated. What is the behavior? What is the outcome that was good? And next, I want you to clarify why was that desired, right? So you did a good job doing this thing, right? So you did a good job of putting together this report in a timely manner. Because you did that, we were able to make a decision in a timely manner and move forward. This is a simple alteration to a good job, but it is powerful in giving people the information they need to improve upon and continue desired behavior. Now, the second purpose of performance feedback is to correct undesired behavior. So whenever giving corrective feedback, again, I want you to be very specific, to be strategic. And so I want you to use this what-why model twice. All right, so first thing we're going to do is seek understanding, being mindful of that fundamental attribution error. Seek intent, seek understanding. Then I want you to clarify using facts and data. What was the undesired behavior, right? What was the undesired behavior? And why was that undesired? All right? So don't say don't do that, right? Instead, I want you to clarify. This was the undesired behavior, or this was the undesired outcome. And this is why this was undesired. Then I want you to move into a second layer of why. What is an alternative action? If you don't want me to do this, then what is the alternative action? Ideally, this is a conversation, right? So you and the individual, or you and the team, are deciding what this alternative action could be. And then also clarifying, why is that the alternative action? This second why is where you're going to see the buy-in, right? This is alternative action, is where you'll see that buy-in in your conversation, okay? So what was undesired? Why was it undesired? What is desired? So what's the alternative action? And why is that preferred? All right. So our first purpose of performance feedback is to encourage desired behavior. Our second purpose is to correct undesired behavior. And then our third purpose is to coach. So whenever we're coaching, there isn't necessarily behavior that is undesired, but this may be more of a conversation of continuous improvement, right? So we're trying to build upon what already exists. And so in coaching behavior, I want you to use this what-why model twice. So what was the action? What was the outcome that occurred? In this what, use facts, use data, use figures, right? So what happened, all right? And why was that somewhat effective? All right, so what happened and why was that somewhat effective? Then we're going to move into this second layer. What is a way that we could continuously improve? What is an alternative action that would raise the standard, right? What could we do to be even better? And why would that be preferred? Why is that the preferred action, okay? The preferred outcome. So in coaching feedback, again, preferably this is a conversation that you are having with the individual, that you're having with your team to agree upon that alternative what and that alternative why. Now, after you have clarified your purpose, so to review, first things first, we're going to seek understanding. Look for intent first. Second, we're going to go into the purpose of our feedback. All right, second, you're going to go into the purpose of your feedback. And then third, we are going to clarify the action step. Now, whenever I think about clarifying the action step, I'm reminded of one of my favorite childhood stories, and that is Amelia Bedelia. For those of you who have not yet read Amelia Bedelia, you are in luck. Amelia Bedelia is just an excellent book. So Amelia Bedelia, for those of you who don't know, is a housemaid. So she is very driven. She is a hard worker. She wants to do a good job, and she really takes action. And so Amelia Bedelia shows up to the house, and the homeowners give her a list of clear expectations. This is what we want done by the end of the day. And so they tell her things such as dust the furniture. They want her to dress the turkey. They want her to draw the drapes. And so Amelia Bedelia looks at the list and she begins going to work. And so she does things like throwing dust all over the furniture. And she needs to change the towels, and so she cuts up the towels so they look different. And whenever the homeowners come home, their house is in complete and total disarray. And so, in complete and total disarray. And so these poor homeowners really had to learn how to adjust their communication. While this may be a fun children's story, how many times do we walk away from a meeting thinking that we have clarified our action steps, and then we find out that we're in more of an Amelia Bedelia situation, right? So the homeowners, and so sometimes we might be in an Amelia Bedelia situation. Sometimes we might be Amelia Bedelia. There have been times in my life that I think that I have understood the directions, I have understood the communication, and then I realize that I have completely misunderstood what the action step is. And so what I want you to do for your third step of performance feedback is to clarify the action step. Ask the person to repeat back what they've heard. Give a specific situation of what will we do in this situation instead. Talk through, role play, do a story tell. In some way, clarify the alternative action. All right, so I want you to clarify that action step. And then the last thing that I want you to do, step 4, is to follow up. Too often times we come to a performance feedback meeting, we give the feedback, and then we leave, and we never talk about the feedback again. Especially if you are giving corrective feedback, the goal is that the next conversation that you have will be a coaching conversation, right? So here you say, okay, this is what's improved. What can we do to continuously improve moving forward, right? Whenever you follow up, you are showing the person that you care about them. You're showing the person that you are invested in their continuous development. Now, chances are, if you want to follow up and you leave the meeting, then the chances are that of that follow-up meeting coming on your calendar is very, very small. And so in the follow-up meeting, or in the initial meeting, right then, I want you to put a follow-up date on the calendar. All right? I want you to put a follow-up date on the calendar. So to review, Our 4 steps is to seek understanding, go into the purpose, clarify action, and then follow up. Now, I know I've gone through a lot of information in a short amount of time. And sometimes whenever this happens, I'm reminded of one of my youngest players that I coached. See, he was about 6 years old. His name was Achinthia, and he was so excited for his first day of football. On his first day, he came running out onto the field, yelling, "Pass, pass, pass!" And so I asked, I said, "Achinthia, why are you yelling pass?" And he looked up at me, and I noticed, well, going back, he was yelling pass, and I noticed whenever he was yelling pass, he was miles away from the action. And I noticed whenever he was yelling pass, the other team had the ball. And I noticed whenever he was yelling pass, he had the ball. So then he was running with the ball, going pass, pass, pass. And so I looked at Achinthia. I said, "Achinthia, why are you yelling pass?" And he looked up at me and he said, "Miss Ambermum, I do not know what it means. I only know it is a football word." Sometimes I hear organizations sound a little bit like my friend Achinthia, yelling leadership, teamwork, communication, we got this. Because we know that these are really good words that can lead to big goals. But if we're in the wrong position, if we're miles away from the action, or even if we have the ball and we don't know in which direction we're going, then saying these words are not only ineffective, but they're actually detrimental to the overall communication within our team. Eventually, the team is going to tune you out, the way that they tuned out my friend Achinthia. But if we take the time to create an environment for excellent performance by clarifying our what and our why and allowing space for opportunities for ownership within the how, if we take the time to seek understanding, to give purposeful, meaningful feedback, to clarify the action step, and then follow up, then we will be in a position to yell pass, to receive the ball, to move forward, and to score really big goals. Thank you all so much for having me here today. My name is Amber Vanderburg from the Pathways Group. If you have any questions at all, or you would like to follow up from this conversation, I would be glad to connect. I love to celebrate people's successes and be a resource for any challenges. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.